Right, this video, fueling your runs or fueling your workouts. I've got the vest off. It's a tight vest top, you know, one like all the boy bands. If you understand the reference, then fair play. Anyway, fueling your runs, very much a case of, you know, what to eat, when should you be eating. Something I do now, but never really used to prioritise, probably just because I used to see the running as a way of burning calories as opposed to actually performance. And since implementing some of these fueling strategies, myself seen a huge improvement in performance with my running, the ability to run for long periods of time, and also just obviously to recover to continue the running side of things. So if we look at the importance, we want to see food as fuel. We want to get out of the mindset of, you know, calories are for deficit to drop body fat, surplus to gain muscle mass. Whilst that is true, when it comes to running, we want to see it as the food we consume is there to fuel the workout we're about to do. Okay, make sure we've got sufficient energy, we're well fueled, we're well hydrated as well, to get the most out of the workout. Because what we don't want to be doing is under fueling, performance drops off, and we're not feeling great. So, like for myself, in the past, I've just, you know, woken up, gone straight out, ran, come back, which is fine if you're doing anywhere from maybe 5 to 8k, but then if you're doing anything longer than that, you will notice a drop off in your performance, which is obviously not what we want to be doing. So, you know, since making a more conscious effort, I've seen a huge improvement in my training for running, which we've done a fair amount of recently. It'll be in 12 months, I'll have done a 52 kilometre ultramarathon, an Ironman, and a 110 kilometre ultramarathon in a year, and obviously all the training for it. So a fair few miles will have been completed, and probably gives me that authority to talk about this and what's worked and what hasn't worked. So if we're looking at fasted sessions, so I normally used to be a real good big fan of this, and I know for a lot of people that have got maybe 9 to 5 jobs or busy, getting up in the morning, doing the run first thing will allow you to get the session complete. Me, I would much rather get it done at 6 a.m. in the morning than 6 p.m. at night. Okay, just purely down to the fact of by that time I'm pretty cooked, especially if I had a busy day myself, which is pretty rare. But you know, it's far better just getting in the morning, no one about, no distractions, you can do it. So fasted sessions, how would I go about this successfully? So I would be making sure my meal the night before has prioritised carbohydrates. So the last meal the night before could consist of a meal with rice or potatoes. It could be with a bowl of oats. It could be, like pasta dish. It could be a bagel. It could be sourdough. Because ultimately, although you've been to sleep, those carbohydrates are still going to be in the system and still there ready to use. Okay, they don't just vanish overnight. So if you're training, doing a running session at 6 a.m. in the morning, let's say, or 7 a.m. and you don't want to eat on the morning, I'll be having a large carbohydrate meal the night before. Waking up, I'd be hydrating with water and with electrolytes, and then heading out on the run. So fasted sessions, that is how I'd go about it. Now, obviously, if you're training in the day or later on, how would I go about your pre-session of fueling? So this could be, you know, maybe at the weekend when typically most people have their longer runs. For myself and for clients, I will program longer runs. That's not good. I'll program longer runs at the weekend because they're probably not at work, they've got more time. So pre-session fueling is going to be very much important. Now, how much to consume and what to consume is going to be very dependent on the individual. You mainly want to focus on carbohydrates. It's fairly simple. Why? Because that's going to be our body's main energy source. You know, so I would be consuming anywhere from 60 to 100 grams pre-run, and 60 to 90 minutes before as well. But obviously, the more you consume, the longer you're probably going to want to wait. For myself, you know, it'll take a little while to digest. So everyone's digestive abilities are different. So obviously, find out what works for yourself. But that's typically how I would go. I'd keep protein lower and fats lower, just from a digestive standpoint. We want to just prioritise those carbohydrate intake. And I'd also keep fibre low as well, for digestion purposes. So I like to keep it very basic. I'd also be making sure that the food you're consuming, the carbohydrates mainly, are going to be simple. They're ones that you've digested or eaten before. You might just need to play around with the quantity. So bagels, oats, sourdough, banana, honey, cereal. Nice, easy to digest, nice and simple. get them in. I myself would go for 1 to 2 bagels, depending on how long the run is, banana, bit of honey, and some pink salt for hydration with sodium intake. Don't need to overcomplicate it, because the last thing you want to be doing is running on a full stomach, feeling bloated, and maybe needing the toilet on the run, which is not what you want. Intra-session, so this is where supplementations will come into play, and where you really want to be this is can make or break the workout, especially if you're running for a long period of time. So this is where you want to be using sort of gels, energy bars, or depending on what sort of run you're doing, actual whole food. So if you're doing, like for myself at the moment with an ultra marathon, my training, I'm trying to consume whole foods whilst running or walking. So, bagels, saurine, like cereal bars. I'm trying to keep whole foods, and then I'll use gels as like a top up if needed. So that's what I'd be looking to do. Whereas if you're running, throughout the whole duration, it's going to be very hard to eat a bagel and run. That's why you probably want gels or energy bars. So I would be going for SIS beta fuel gels, 40 grams per serving, and these are going to contain carbohydrates, easy to digest. Some will also have caffeine in, and some will also have electrolytes in as well, so depending on which ones you get. And then the energy chew bars, they're an alternative. They're normally a little bit less in terms of carbohydrates per serving, but it's just nice to mix up. They're like wine gums, so it's a little bit different as opposed to that gel, because after 3 or 4 gels, they can become a little bit sickly. Whereas if you are able to just take on a couple of chews, or like these wine gums, it just helps mix it up a little bit. So intra-session, super important. Anything over 10k, I would be looking at taking on gels, and then I'd be looking at maybe every 3 to 5 kilometers after that, in terms of taking on carbohydrates. Post-session, nice simple. Hydration is going to be your main focus first. So once you've done your run, you're going to lose a lot of sweat. So be some water, 500 milliliters for example, some electrolytes as well. That's going to just make sure that the body's well hydrated post-run. Then I would be looking for some form of mainly again carbohydrates, but also some protein to help with the recovery aspect. So again, not overcomplicating it. I personally would go for something like some whey protein, just because it's easy to digest. I'm not typically that hungry after a long run. I'm more thirsty, so I always like something nice and simple, like a sugary drink or like a can of Fanta or something like that. So some carbohydrates, some whey protein, and then after about an hour, I'll then have a bigger, larger meal. So that might be something like basic chicken and rice. It could be some pasta dish. It could be anything. But again, carbohydrates prioritised, then protein also as well. So there we go. In terms of supplements that I recommend, the ones I've spoken about, got the SIS beta fuel gels, 40 grams per serving. Some electrolytes that I use. So I use the Supplement Needs electrolytes serving in the morning. You can then also use other electrolytes. I'd just be careful. I'd be mindful of sort of the panel that it includes, so make sure you're getting a high quality one. Whey protein, and then these are the chews, energy chews that I would recommend. Fantastic, different flavours, taste quite nice. And about 25 grams carbs per serving, as in per packet. So there we go when it comes to fueling. So key takeaways is first of all, do not neglect them, and don't see your runs as, I'm just burning calories, so I don't want to take on anything. See it as performance. Food is fuel on these runs. If you're wanting to progress, if you're wanting the kudos on Strava, and you're wanting to do good running, make sure you don't neglect your fueling pre-run, post-run, and intra-run. In terms of your pre-workout food, keep it nice and simple. Foods that you can digest, foods that you can stomach well and aren't going to cause any sort of issues. The last thing you want to be doing is having a pre-workout meal that you're not normally used to, going on a run and realising I'm in a little bit of bother. Not what you want. Intra-workout fueling can make or break your runs 100%. So like I said, gels, energy bars are fantastic. I'd be going for a gel maybe on the 10k mark, which for most people is probably around the hour, just under the hour. And then I'd be looking at every 5 kilometers after. But again, it's all going to be person dependent, and whatever strategy you go with for your intra-workout fueling, make sure you're using it in your training block, so that when it comes to race day, you know exactly what you need to do, and you don't want to change or deviate from your strategy come race day, because again, you're not going to be sure on how your body's going to respond. Then post-workout, hydration is going to be obviously very important, so another serving of electrolytes to make sure we're well replenished. and also recovery with your nutrition, so carbohydrates and protein. And then also, supplementations are going to help. They're a worthy investment. They're going to aid your goals when it comes to training, with your session performance, with your recovery, overall health, etc. So there's some key takeaways on how to go about fueling your runs, how to go about obviously recovering from your runs as well, and just a little bit more of a breakdown. So if you did enjoy the video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.